Onstage, Johnston Jemma time. Onstage, Johnston Jemma time. Onstage, Johnston Jemma time. Onstage, Johnston Jemma time. Time in gym.
Tonight we welcome singer-songwriter Caitlin Jemma to the stage of the Phoenix Theater. Born in northern Nevada, Caitlin has been on our radar for a while and has been making a name for herself up and down the West Coast over the last decade. She recently released her fourth studio album, Love Notes, and we'll be going deep into that tonight as we get to know her and the music she creates. Please welcome to the program, Caitlin Jemma.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My goodness. Caitlin, let's just start with a good quote that you once said.
Okay.
I feel like it's the thesis statement for your creative soul, and that is, you said that at the heart of each song is a story, one we all live, relate to, celebrate, and mourn.
Yes.
You're referring to your own songs, I think. Could you go a little deeper into that? Because I feel like that is what you define as your mission and role as a songwriter.
Yeah. When I think about that statement, I picture this moment, several moments that I had while recording Love Notes, and I recorded it at 100-Year-Old Theater. And one reason that I think that album came out as well as I wanted it to was that I imagined as I was recording it what it would feel like on the other side. So what would it feel like as the listener? And I imagine all these different people in different places, like maybe someone's just in their home listening to it as they're making breakfast, or maybe someone's in their car or something. And I just really tried to visualize so many different kinds of people experiencing the music. And I did that while I was creating it. And I wanted to also generate a feeling. So really imagine what the listener would feel when I was creating it.
Because you're channeling experiences and feelings you've had, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're picturing those people, does that help you sort of curate and sort that?
Yeah, I think it just helped me have more direction and purpose in creating those songs and feeling like, okay, this is something that I'm doing for others and for myself, but also wanting to reach outside of myself more and do for others what music has always done for me.
What has music done for you?
It saved my life, honestly. Music has, taken me out of some dark places and transformed my life completely. I've always loved words. I grew up writing poetry. And I was just always attached to listening to music. I always had the Walkman on me and, would fall asleep to listening to music as a kid.
So I just, because it just seems like some people write music just as therapy for themselves, but it seems like for you, there's a higher calling to it. There's a higher mission there. And would you agree with that?
I would, yeah.
This album was released last year, and it was referred to by a publication called Vortex Magazine as a genre-bending take on radical self-love. I feel like it's a lot more than that, though. This album is a concept album.
Yeah.
Could you? I don't know if you would call it that, but I mean, there's definitely there's definitely a concept behind it. So, could you tell us about that concept?
Well, it's called Love Notes because it's 10 love songs, different kinds of love. The first song, Ain't That Something, is about self-love, which is, I think, the most important, because if you don't love yourself, then you can't love other people. And then it kind of moves through relationship, those kind of standard love songs.
You cover a lot of different types of love on this album. Long distance love is something you said. You said, what else did you say here? Tough love. Obviously self-love. What do you feel like you learned about love in the making of this album and writing these songs?
I learned that love is everywhere. And my favorite song on the album, Lean on My Love, opens with "Love is the constant season that stays." that line was a poem that I wrote at a friend's wedding, and it was autumn time and the seasons were changing, and it felt like politically like a lot was going on too, and it just felt like a really kind of like intense raw time, but it was also, I was at this wedding and it was really beautiful too, and I was standing by this oak tree and I wrote down this line in my phone, "Love is the constant season that stays," because I thought, it's October now and the seasons are changing, but there's always this thing that we can grab onto. We can always choose love. And that kind of like, after I wrote that song, it sort of set the tone for a lot of other songs too that ended up on the album. So.
And not to criticize Vortex Magazine, because I do think that self-love is probably like one of the more important discoveries that you made in making this album, about how important and fundamental that is. But do you feel like you learned to like love yourself better? Did you struggle with self-love like at a different point in your life? It feels like this album, when it touches on self-love, it's you really kind of like ruminating on how important that is, and maybe about like your own personal progress on that.
Yeah, I would say so. How this album's different than the other three is that I finally felt like I was being myself and allowing myself to be myself. So the previous three albums, there was moments where I felt like I was touching on something that was authentically me, but there was always a song on the album that I felt like was just filler or something that I was putting on because it sounded like this other song that I liked, but it wasn't necessarily coming from my heart. And so this album has moved past all that. And it took some time. But yeah, I would say that self-love is definitely a prominent theme there. One thing that comes to mind is that my last three albums before this were like folky, bluegrassy albums. And I always had this love for Motown music and soul. And in that process of writing folk and bluegrass music, I thought like, oh, someday like I want to be in a funk soul cover band and I'll have this other persona happening. And once my string band kind of fell away and I was just completely on my own as a solo songwriter again, I started writing soulful tunes. And it occurred to me that I was the person that was holding myself back, and that I don't need to have a side project. I just need to be me. And that I don't need to stick to one genre, that people aren't going to stop liking my music because I'm branching out. And so this album was a real branching out of genres.
It feels like a really simple concept if you haven't sat in your seat. The idea of just like being comfortable to try something new, but profound. It's probably something that kept you up. It's something that worried you. As somebody who's dedicated themselves totally to music, the idea of making a wrong move and then like basically like potentially opening yourself up for people to say, I don't really like her music as much as I used to. That's a scary thing. And what an amazing like transformation it is just to simply say, this is me, this is what I want to do, and I'm comfortable enough with myself to make this change.
Yeah.
I mean, it's profound in its simplicity. I'm just going to be me. But you see everybody in the entire world wrestle with that as they grow. You know what I mean? When they're younger, a lot of the time there's inner discomfort, and hopefully as people get older, they become more comfortable and get to navigate this world as their more authentic selves.
Yes.
And this album is a celebration of that in some ways. You, Tom Gaffey, co-host Tom Gaffey, you brought up to me that there are 7 types of love. Yes. What did you want to talk about on that way?
So
I didn't know this. I didn't know that
this was an assignment of mine when I was in high school, and to read the book 7 Types of Love. And also Psychology Today has an article on it, and there are, as defined by the Greeks, 7 types of love. Weirdly.
You know, you're bringing this back because I actually did read this, but I'm looking forward to a reminder.
Cool.
Yes.
So there are the 7 types, strangely. The last one was the one that you centered on the most. And in the Greek world, they were
Philotia.
and this is self-love. But and it's such an important love to have, but you need to be careful it doesn't turn into they were afraid of hubris. And
That's unhealthy self-love.
it is unhealthy self-love, and it led to the fall of Troy. And in their mythology, it was one of the most important loves, but also one of the most dangerous. You needed to be sure that your love for yourself was pure, and your intention was good, and you were not using it against anyone. But then it starts with, and my favorite, always everybody's favorite, just because of the word, is eros. And this would be the love that we feel for a loving partner. The sexuality and the commitment of love together. It's an incredible love to have, and it's also a very dangerous love.
Well, I think what's interesting about the society that we live in now, the modern construct of love, is often eros. We don't really think a lot about some of these other ones. And it's like when you have a crush on someone, when that's the person you want, just broadly, like this is the one that we go to. This is what we consider love. And in Greek myth, this is the form of madness brought on by one of Cupid's arrows.
That's true too. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
But it is the love that we think about the most, and it is a madness, I think. You get to, after that, you go into philia, which is I think for me one of the most important. That's the friendship. That's the love of a friend, and a love that two people can feel almost without having as much baggage to it, I think. Storge, a familial love, which will find its way into a lot of songwriters' songs anyway, as you write about family and brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers. I don't know. Did you capture one of those in this album? I don't think you did.
I did, but it's a secret.
Far out.
It's a secret. There is one.
Do you broadly, don't need to go into specifics, do you find this sort of love in your life, a familial love? Is this is this a settled matter, pretty easy stuff, or is it one of those that has required a little navigation?
Definitely some navigation.
Yeah.
The last song, Hummingbird, is about someone in my family who's going through a hard time, and I don't know. I don't want to interrupt your...
No. This is good. This is your interview.
Yeah,
the prompts,
I'm really enjoying
the prompts
this.
are to elicit responses. In a perfect world, we pepper some Tom Gaffey, we pepper some Caitlin Jemma, and love is the through line. But anyway...
well, this is a pretty cool story. So the last... second to last song on the album is called Hummingbird. And the reason it's called Hummingbird is because... I had 9 songs ready to go on the album, and it was several days before I was going to go up to Enterprise and record it. And someone in my family had called me, and they were having a really, really hard time, and I felt so disconnected because I was so physically far away, and also there's only so much you can do for someone when they're having a hard time. Like, you just have to send them love and wish them the best, really. And that can be a very helpless feeling when you have someone that's struggling with addiction, especially. That's really hard because there's really nothing that you can do except send them love.
That would be the hard love you were talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is tough love. In that way.
Tough love. Yeah.
In this particular instance, it seemed like it wasn't that, though. It seemed like you were like, gosh, I wish I could do something.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I come back to this like more helpless feeling of like, I love you, and I wish that there was something I could do about this. So I was really struggling with that feeling, and I got up really early in the morning. I was staying in Portland. And it was probably 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was sort of, meditating with my guitar, just playing guitar. And this song started coming to me, and I was thinking about this person and thinking about the concept of like, okay, nothing that I can really say to this person is going to make a difference, but maybe I can just send them some positive energy through my music. And as I was doing that and I started to write this song, this hummingbird came by and flew right in front of my face. And I don't know if you guys ever experience, sometimes birds seem to fly in front of my face at very odd moments in my life. Several different kinds of birds I've had experiences with. But,
Before we finish the story, did you know that in Native American culture, hummingbirds are seen as healers and bringers of love, good luck, and joy?
Yes.
In Central America, they are a sign of love and will bring love to the person who spots them.
See?
So, I mean, my God. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but this felt topical.
No, that's perfect. And once I saw that hummingbird, I felt that I could just feel hope for this person, that I could really, that everything was going to be all right. And then the song completed itself, and then a second hummingbird came by, and they just kind of were, there was this little feeder that was outside where I was sitting, and they just hung around me for pretty much the duration of me writing the song. And the chorus of the song just says, "That's all I can do," in that meaning, all I can do is send you love and just hold on to your light and keep going is the message of that song. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing it. Now, did you say that was like kind of the secret one? Like it wasn't?
Yeah. Well, it's a secret because I don't want to say who it is in my family, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe you were moving on, unless you have more to say.
Well, no. I think the next one was the one that I was the most fascinated with because of an interview that I'd read about your love for Carson City, which, by the way, you're going to be playing in Ashland, Jackson, very close to where my father is up in Ashland.
Cool.
He was a particular fan of Carson City.
Cool.
He loved to go up there a lot in his youth and in his young adulthood. And this next love is agape, the love for, it's a general love, but quite a bit of love for nature. Love for strangers, but love for nature. And this you learned in Carson City.
So I went to school in Carson City, but I'm from Virginia City. And Virginia City is a small mining town up in the mountains at around 7,000 feet. So that's, where I grew up. I grew up on a dirt road with hardly any neighbors, and my parents have an acre of land up there. And so Carson City is a lot more populated than where I grew up, which is about 1,000 people where I grew up. But I'm in the mountains outside of that town.
I believe you said you were a country mouse in city mouse clothes or something such as that.
That's right.
But yes, agape, as the text you're reading says, given the increasing anger and division in our society and the state of our planet, we could all do with quite a bit more agape.
That's true.
And now we move on to your next, Tom Gaffey's 7 Types of Love.
The ludus, which is the playful style of love, a non-committed love. Just a love for the moment.
We got the teasing, we got the dancing, we got the flirting, we got the seducing, we got the conjugating.
All right.
The focus is fun.
Yeah, the focus is fun. Yeah, and for me, I always saw, and in fact, I remember I related that to being in the moment with whoever you're with. And there is that connection you get, and there is that love that you feel, and it can be playful and a lot less stressful, I think.
But problems arise when one party mistakes ludus for eros, because ludus is actually much more compatible with philia, which, if you're paying attention to what we're talking about, that was the affectionate love, the shared goodwill, friendship, fun. All right. Anything more to say on that type of love before we move on to the next?
Well, actually, how did that feel? How did that figure into playful, fun, looser love? How did that figure into your?
I'm trying to think of a song on the album that would be.
You strike me as someone who could be playful.
I am playful.
Yeah.
I would say that the songs on Love Notes are playful.
Yeah, they are.
But they're not necessarily about playful love. They're a little deeper than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, because I look at the album as a kind of a more serious album. It's like you're musing on all these different things and how they've affected you. And I assume that at least some of the songs came from a place of pain at one point or another, where you were like, oh gosh, I'm having trouble processing this. There's some sort of a blockage in how I'm feeling this particular type of love. Why is that? And this song is kind of your way of examining that inside yourself.
Interesting.
Would you say that there's any truth to that, or is that just total nonsense?
You are the second person who has said like, oh, this album has some sadness in there, and it's cool that you see that, because I think overall it's a upbeat sonically album, but if you do look deeper, there's some other stuff there too.
Well, also, me being a human being who has experienced some feelings, and you writing an album that is filled with them, you really don't learn things without some of the pain.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
if you just go about your life just having a good time and there's no bumps, then an album like this doesn't tend to come out.
It's true. It's just, I think it's just part of life, right?
Part of life. Yeah. Pragma. You want to talk about pragma? What is pragma?
Well, I mean, pragma is the root for pragmatic. But
That's
pragma as a love is the committed love, love of country, love of duty, love of what you're into.
It's a practical love.
It's a practical love.
It's a reason, duty, or one's longer term interests.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sexual attraction, it takes a backseat in pragma.
Oh, pragma, yeah.
Yeah, we're more concerned with like the path forward.
I think pragma could absolutely overtake and destroy Eros at times.
Absolutely.
So would this be like love of your work? Would
Yeah,
that be
love of
it?
your
Okay.
work. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's all over my album.
Yeah.
Would it be though? I mean, I feel like I'm sure that a lot of these things bleed into a lot of different ways, but I look at pragma more as like, let's say that you didn't necessarily believe that Kim and Kanye loved each other. All right. I'm not saying that. I don't know them, but but we look at their pairing and we're like, boy, like business wise, this thing really makes a lot of sense.
Ah, the pragma.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
okay.
In the days of arranged marriages, not that I'm saying anything
right.
about anybody.
Again,
it
pragma.
said to be very common. I mean, basically, like, when you look at two powerful individuals whose power can grow greater by their union, or people who just like, in business or whatever, like when partners go into business with each other, at a certain point, it seems like the love kind of takes a backseat to the practicality, the money,
Yes.
the moving forward in life.
That's
and I think
pragma.
that's pragma. You
Yeah,
know?
that is. I mean, whole countries and wars were ended over pragma, I think.
Yeah.
And so,
You say that love of work has permeates throughout the album.
Yes.
You love the work that you do.
Yeah.
You strike me as someone who is singly focused on the music, and that could get in the way of perhaps an Eros-style relationship.
That's
if the
right.
Eros-style relationship,
It's complicated.
well, absolutely, right? I mean, you love the Eros stuff, sure, fine, whatever. But it's like if it's getting in the way of your progress as a songwriter, this is your thing, this is your life, this is what you find identity through.
It's true.
I think that you, as a pragmatic individual, would choose the music over the individual.
I that has gotten me in trouble before. Let me just say that. But
Yeah.
yes, it's true. I mean, I wouldn't say that, overall that, I mean, it's kind of case by case basis, right? It's not like my work comes before my lovers in every area of my life. But my work is highly important to me. And ultimately, I'm here to work.
This is,
That's
this
what
is
I'm
your
here to do.
purpose. This is what you're here to No, seriously. I
Yeah.
mean, nobody would ever do it, but if somebody said you need to choose between me and this life that we're
Right.
discussing right here, well, you would choose this life. It's just like,
yeah.
When you look at all of the road songs that have been written,
Yeah.
they're out on the road
It's a
singing
theme.
about the ones that they can't be with because of pragma. They are out doing what they love, out doing their job, out doing their career, out on the road, while the family or your lover waits back at home.
Yeah.
And rock and roll, the road of rock and roll is paved on broken hearts and pragma broken relationships.
this is exceptionally difficult for people who don't live this life to understand.
Yes.
They cannot understand
can't.
a lot of the time.
They
And
can't.
and that is why
Yeah.
I think after some stumblings and some probably relationships that didn't work out, you realize that. And then you have to take that in consideration when choosing someone to spend that time with.
Yeah.
If they don't understand, if they
That's
don't,
right.
if they don't understand that they have to share you they have to share you with this life, then
that
it's
I'm
not going to
married.
work
Yeah,
out.
that I'm married already to my
Exactly.
work. So
Yeah, but you're poly in that way. So you'll allow another person in,
yeah.
but they need to understand.
It's a
Exactly.
shared relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comes with perks though. I mean, backstage
yeah.
passes.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and also it will, if you
And a
allow
song
it,
will be written
drinks.
about you.
if the partner allows it
Good
to
songs.
bloom, it can
Yeah.
only get better.
It's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good that waits on the other side.
But
That is actually what All Night is about, partially.
tell us more.
So I was in New Orleans. It was a very sweaty, humid, normal New Orleans.
That's Nolans. Yeah.
Yeah, October afternoon, and I was thinking about this fantasy I have, which is like, okay, so I want to have a partner that I can spoil, but that I get in return this understanding that, okay, I'm going to support her and her work, right? And so
So wait a minute, just to be clear, you spoil individual, and in return, individual's like, hey, you do you.
go out on the road. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. You don't want to be spoiled back. This is not a person that wants to be spoiled
I
back.
want to be spoiled. I mean, I want my love straight up. That's what the song says.
You strike me as someone who would accept not an equal level of spoiling, as long as you got that agreement that you just stated.
I don't know if that's, well, okay. If it was one or the other, maybe.
Yeah.
But yes, the song starts off, I'm giving you everything I've got. Tonight I've got love. Let's keep this flame hot. 70116. Best you understand. Ain't nobody shaking and stirring it like I can. Serve to me that top shelf man. I want to be his little sugar mama. That is the key there. All right. So if you're cool with that, with me being out on the road, like, guess what? I'm going to take you to New Orleans. We're going to have a great time. We're going to get oysters.
Yeah.
And you should know
We'll get you backstage, baby.
70116 is, of course, the zip code.
You
for
got
New
it.
Orleans.
You
Yeah.
got it.
Okay. Just, this is a behind the scenes,
Yes.
fans only.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know your zip codes.
That's true. Google knows their zip codes. Well, best of luck in finding that arrangement. It's a tough one, but it's out there.
Thank
There is an eighth type of love, by the way. Your list had 7 types of love,
Yeah.
but there is an eighth type of love.
Is there an eighth type?
They call it mania.
So that's like
obsessive
Eros
love.
on
Oh.
steroids.
It's not necessarily a good type of love because it is obsessive,
Yeah.
and it can lead someone to madness, jealousy, and even anger. And that is because the balance between Eros and Ludus, sexual and playful, is terribly off. Often, people who experience this type of love have some low self-esteem. They fear losing the object of their love. And the
Yeah.
fear compels them to do things. It can be very destructive. The eighth type of love. It's not all fun and games, folks.
No.
No.
Wow. It's a modern world.
I feel like I know the answer to this question, but what do you feel like the love you struggled with the most was when you were writing this album?
I struggled the most. I can't think of a particularly challenging love song on Love Notes. Because at that time I was in a relationship. Now I'm working on my breakup album, and
We'll get to that.
and that's a lot harder. In fact, I've had experiences recording this new album that I've never had before, where I've just kind of like feel like I'm back in that experience of breaking up again. And with Love Notes, I didn't have that as much of a challenge. I think the most challenging song on Love Notes was probably Hummingbird, because I was thinking about this family member who was struggling, and and so that one was, I had to kind of purposely put myself in a darker emotional space to be able to create that. But the breakup album is a whole other dark emotional space.
How long ago did the breakup happen?
Oh boy. It happened October last year.
Yeah. Well, sometimes these things take years. So,
Yeah.
and the album may be coming out around the anniversary of that breakup.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
This is an October tentative release for this thing.
That's right. That's right.
Do we want to come back to the breakup album, or do we just want to talk about it right now?
Let's just go on.
What are you learning about yourself in this album? Tell us. What are you learning?
Okay,
Two questions, and just we'll just sit back.
Okay.
It's like what are you learning about yourself as you make this album and write this album, record this album, and then also like just more broadly, what have you learned about yourself generally?
I have learned of my own strength and my own capabilities. This is the first time that I really, really, really got my heart broken. Like I've had some minor fractures, but this was a huge turning and understanding of what all of these heartbreak songs over time, they're so dramatic, and until you really get your heart broken, you're just like, oh, another heartbreak song, like so dramatic. Like I know what that feels like it's not that bad until you have the one. And when you have that one, then it really makes sense. And this album that I'm doing, it's just a really quick thing. I'm not having a band with me. I'm having some accompaniment, some violin, trumpet. Maybe there'll be some rhythm on some songs, but it's mostly solo. And it's supposed to be solo because it's a solo journey, right? And there's going to be 4 or 5 new songs, or some of them are from older albums that I'm redoing, and then some are new, and then there's some cover songs too that I'm putting on the album that are your classic breakup song. But I won't share that yet.
There's a lot of material in breakup.
Songwriting's a special art form because it's very intimate like that, right?
You have to decide where you want to be, how real you want to be.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're being very real.
Yeah, I mean, I think, being authentic is the primary goal in creating my art, because I think if I'm being honest about what I'm experiencing and feeling, then that allows other people to do that too. So,
I mean, as someone who has felt some pain in my life, I asked this question from my own experience, and that is like, how much did you reevaluate in your life? Because it feels like this process of heartbreak is ultimately, when you zoom out, it becomes like you taking inventory of everything and just painfully looking at it all.
Yeah. It's like it's the most intense process I've ever had in my life. Definitely. So many levels, so many depths of it. And it just goes on and on. It's incessant. It feels like there's just, it's grief, right?
Yeah.
So over time, different things will bother me about it that I would not have expected them to. And there's a new song I have that says like time is the ultimate healer. And that's true, that over time things do heal. And also you get other perspectives on the grieving process. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, where I'm healing and learning, but I'm also still wounded and being honest with myself about that. And I think in this process, I've just had to not run away from that. And instead of, turning to substances or turning to things that are unhealthy for me, I'm just turning into my art and relying on my art to support me in that process and in that grief.
I think that we societally are kind of trained to think that this process should be a lot tidier than it always is.
Oh, man. Yeah, and it's not. And it's not supposed to be.
No, it's not. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And like when I asked you the question about when it happened, you kind of laughed, and it's October. Because a lot of the time you tell someone that, and they think like, and you're still You're
Right.
but the reality of it is, I think, to like fully heal and process the intense pain of like thinking life was going to go one way and then it going another way.
Yeah.
I mean, that is oftentimes a multi-year process, whether people want to admit it or not.
It's true. I don't expect to be fully, through this process for a few more years.
Yeah.
Because I was with this person for 6 years of my life, and that's a long time to be with someone, and that's a lot of processing. And where I'm at right now with it is like, oh, not that, I think as time goes on, after you have the breakup and you begin to realize, okay, this person maybe wasn't, right for me in these ways. But where I'm at with it right now, and I'm being very vulnerable in sharing this, is I'm learning that what I'm grieving right in this moment is that deep connection with somebody else. Is this kind of overwhelming feeling of like, man, that took years for me to feel so connected and vulnerable with someone and so raw, and I'd never at that point been so intimate with someone. And then to not have that connection, it's unnerving. It is seriously unnerving, because you get so close with someone and you get all the benefits of that. And then when that's removed from your life, it's like you've been thrown out into the ether alone, and you didn't even realize how alone you were until that moment. And it's pretty psychedelic in a way. Like when I think about it, I just kind of think like I visualize myself in this dark universe, sort of floating and just waiting for the next light to connect with. I don't know if that's the right
Well, that makes sense.
metaphor, but
Weirdly, as we dealing with teenagers down here, we deal
At
with
the
that.
Phoenix Theater. If you're a Caitlin Jemma
Oh, yeah.
fan and you don't know what he's talking about,
Oh, yeah, that's
we're at the Phoenix. It's a community center, and it does a lot of work with young
A
kids.
lot of teens and stuff, and so they're a lot of them are breaking up from their first relationships, and one of the fears is that they'll never find someone that they can be that vulnerable with again, and that comfortable and that safe with. And there's the feeling of now all of a sudden what I thought was safe turned out it wasn't safe, and boy, is that a scary thing. So yeah, there's just so much going on in the breakup.
yeah.
But after I've been watching this for years and years and years, I know that it's going to come back around.
I know. Well, I want to share one thing that, so when the person I was seeing, he broke up with me on the phone as I was boarding my airplane to New Orleans. I was going to go play some gigs in New Orleans for Halloween. And he broke up with me as I was, it was very dramatic. Felt like it was a scene from a movie or something. So felt like I was sort of watching myself play this out. And I'm getting broke up with on the phone, and I'm sitting down in my seat. And my life has just completely changed at this point. And I was alone on the airplane, and I'm just kind of like, I have to tell someone this. I look to my right, these two older ladies. I'm in the window seat. These two older ladies, and I go, my partner of 6 years just broke up with me. And she looked over at me, and she goes, sweetie, you're better off. And I just kind of like, the deep inside voice inside me goes, I know you're right. But the louder ego voice was just like, no, you don't understand this. No, it can't be. But there was this I got a sense of comfort though, because I thought, she's seen some stuff. So she must be right. Like, I think I'm going to be okay.
I feel like you're going to be that person in like 70 years flying to New Orleans at the same time
You're better
to
off.
play a show. Yeah, I honestly do. That's going to be you.
But you'll start off with, by the way, I've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah. I remember when moment.
Well, and to something you said earlier about like how just like heartbreaking the thought of having this deep connection with someone and then not having it anymore.
Yeah.
you reflect on like, yeah, maybe we weren't right for each other. Maybe this thing was wrong. Maybe that thing was wrong. But like when the grief surrounding the loss of that connection is like, you know what, however imperfect that relationship was, it was like, at least we had that deep connection and now we don't have that anymore. Yeah. I mean, that's stupid thing our mind does where it like starts to like amplify things that really should not be amplified.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
You've been living it for 10 months. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Wow.
It's annoying.
Well, you know what's most annoying about it is how it just totally fucks up your radar for moving throughout the world and making decisions. That's the most, especially for you as somebody who does this work, makes this music, and it's incredibly energy intensive.
Yes.
The book, well, not only the writing the music and performing the music, but just like the life of a touring person who doesn't have like major backing from, industry or whatever, it's incredibly difficult, even if you're centered and sane and feel right. And so when everything inside you feels broken, it's tough. So my question for you is like, how much did it affect your creative life and the music life?
It definitely put a lot on pause for me. It was kind of like, okay, now I'm going on a forced sabbatical. And I had to cancel some shows and I had to feel okay doing that. I never like to cancel shows. But I was in such a state of grief that it was impossible for me to continue on with my life as normal. Like I just had to literally go to my mom's house and be cared for and be vulnerable like that. And it's been very interesting to see how different relationships in my life have gotten closer because of this. And I'll say also that like, it forces you to look at everything in your life in a new way and to put more pieces together, and you're learning about, okay, what was I doing? What was I believing about myself to have this kind of relationship happen? Because relationships are always a reflection of ourselves too. So there was all that work that is, it's ongoing. It doesn't stop. But I will say that, when you're in the thick of that, like physical heartbreak too, there's a very physical component of that. It's really hard. And I think something you were saying earlier that, there's this pressure in our society. It's like, oh, it's been this long. Like you should be over it by blah, blah, blah. And there's really no timeline for this. Like I know people who've been divorced for 30 years and they still have their triggers around said person.
Well, you were in a relationship for 6 years.
Yeah.
It's only been 10 months.
Yeah. And I think so one like lesson I'm learning in this is just be kind to yourself. Be kind to your own process and what you're going through, because I think it should be talked about more that this is one of the toughest human experiences that you'll ever go through. That heartbreak is so real and it's so complex and deep, and it's a spiral. It's a spiral process. And there is no distinct timeline. Okay, like, it would be nice if we could just, with a common cold, I know in 3 or 4 days I'm going to be feeling good again.
Kind of, but it's going to linger for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I see what you're saying, though, because when you're in it, it feels like it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
And it won't,
Yeah.
but it may last for a very long time, longer than you would like. And also, like, all of the societal cues that we get on this are, in my opinion, wrong.
They're wrong.
I would say, like, the overarching advice you get from people is that you should go out and date and that you should just go find someone else. And what that actually does is it not only does it, I think, prevent your healing from happening at the level that it should, but it also, like, now brings someone else who's going to get hurt. If you're really feeling that deep sense of pain and you're only trying to escape that deep sense of pain by just subbing in someone else, else. To me, not great advice. Not to say you shouldn't date, but it's just like feeling the pain and experiencing it over the long term, I think, is healthy.
Yeah. And being honest with yourself and others about what that process is like.
So it seems like with this breakup, then you are Eros, we're kind of backing off that a little bit, and seems like you are sort of diving deeper into some of the other forms of love, and that's kind of cool. So that's me connecting an earlier conversation. Well, you're letting love in, but you're not. You're almost by necessity, because like the type of love you had is, that relationship is over now.
Yeah.
But life moves on, and there is, like you say, first thing you said on this thing, you said something about how like love is the constant season. What's that?
Constant season that stays.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you're letting that in, hopefully, as much as you can. And the city you grew up in again was what?
Virginia City, Nevada.
Virginia City, Nevada.
And it's not a city. It's a very small town.
How many people?
1,000 people.
It's very small.
Yeah.
So you have also said of this city that it gave you an appreciation for saloon culture, music, and wild women. Female outlaws in particular.
That's right.
I hope you have an answer to this question. Some of your songs have focused on these sorts of people, and I'm curious, do you have any historically, female outlaws? Just like those like characters that are written about, that are sung about, or maybe that you even have known in real life?
Well, on my third album, I have a song that's about my great-great-grandmother, and my grandmother passed away when she was 94, almost 95 years old. And a lot of my family lives in Michigan. And so I went for her 94th birthday. Yeah, I guess it was that. And she told me this story about how my great-great-grandmother had escaped an arranged marriage. And the story just really fascinated me, because I thought, man, like I've never heard of any kind of story like this in my family. So I wrote this song, Ballad of Tom Hazel. My great grandmother's name is Tom. She was given a boy's name because her father wanted to have a boy, and he treated her like a boy, and she ended up leaving the family and starting another life. And so I have on that album that has that song, there's a spoken word that I wrote that's it's like an ode to wild women, and it kind of it's kind of sort of like this inspiration drawn from some of the people in Virginia City that live, like saloon girls and things like that I think are cool. And yeah.
Wow. I mean, so this is your great grandmother?
Great
grandmother.
Yes.
I mean, I love that, because I would never ask you who your heroes are, but like that woman could absolutely be a hero.
Yeah.
Like, what a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know any of the details of her escaping from that arranged marriage?
So what my grandmother told me was that that they lived in Missouri, and it was a plantation, and she climbed over a wall in the middle of the night, and she was arranged to marry an old doctor.
Pragma.
Yeah. But she was in love with the cobbler, with the shoemaker.
Eros.
Yeah. That's right. And so she ended up marrying him, and
she got the shoemaker.
She got the shoemaker.
Cool.
I know, and I just love that story. Whether I don't know if the details of that are completely true, but whether or not, like, it's
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, because it's kind of like it's this story of women making their own choices with their own damn lives, and I'm in full support of that. So.
What a thing. Yeah. I feel like that is like such a good final like story. I mean, I have like two more questions, but like that's a wonderful thing. Yeah. I honestly, like, I feel like you channel her spirit in everything that you do.
Yeah.
Don't you? I mean,
Yeah,
it's not an easy life that you've chosen for yourself. There's a lot of loneliness in it. There's obviously heartbreak you've experienced now, but also the reward of following your heart and doing what you feel is right for you is incredible.
Hey, don't you think that was your great grandmother sitting next to you on the plane that day?
Ah, sweetie, you're better off. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I think so many times in our life we will give our power over to other people, and then we get these opportunities in our lives to really come face to face with that and say, what am I living for?
And do you feel like, even despite all the pain of the last year, that like you're living for something that you can?
Yeah, definitely. I feel that, when I get stuck, I always come back to music. Music has never left me, and I'm just going with that. And if ever sometime in my life music fades out of my life, then I'll be present with that. But right now, and for the last several years of my life, music has been what my heart is so attached to doing, and I can't not feel that. I trust me, I've tried to do other careers and they don't feel the same. And I'm, maybe I shouldn't say this on air, but maybe I'm not the best employee, because I'm married to this thing, and I'm going with that. And when I get stuck, I just, kind of wave my hands up at the universe and I say, send me a miracle. And then I wait. And I have not had to wait very long when I've really gotten down on my knees and say, what do you want from me? Do you want me to do this thing or not? If you do want me to do it, send me a miracle right now. I kind of, have a tantrum with the universe. And then
They'll
the
make
universe,
you wait like 2 or
"Whoa,
3 days.
All right.
Well, what's incredible about that is like that Tom Gaffey to my right. I mean, you have described that exact experience in your own life in different words.
Yeah, absolutely relate.
All right.
That's faith, and faith is my God. Historically, there are places where it can be proven. Something about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
give up on that.
You both live lives and do things that on paper this society would look at and be like, you two are mad. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It can't work. It won't work. And yet you both have found ways to do it. And sometimes you just gotta you push as much as you can, and then you sometimes you got to reach out to whatever, and usually that will provide.
Yeah.
What a beautiful way for you to wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Do you have any closing thoughts for us?
This has been wonderful. Yep. Thank you for coming and doing this with us.
Thank you.
What I've heard tonight and what I heard today as I was listening to your album, your arrangements are just an awful lot of fun. Again, I keep coming back to the instrumentation. It's well balanced, and God, it's a wonderful album.
Thank
and
you
to
so
see
much.
it live is even more fun. So come and check her out live.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Like I said it during the intro, you have been doing music for a long time. I mean, you're closing in on 10 years, right? Sharing it with people?
Been songwriting for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what I find amazing about your success so far is you live in the East Bay, and you obviously have a presence in the North Bay where we are, but it seems like you've got areas up and down the coast where you go up to Portland, you've got pockets, and people love it. And so
well, I love them. My team goodness.
Exactly.
Shout out.
So, I mean, it's you're someone we've been wanting to document on this project for a while, and I'm really thankful that you came and made it happen tonight. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, watching it live, Mr. Gaffey, it's funny you should mention that because in just a moment, Caitlin Jemma and her band will be performing a set of this music. So let's go to that in just a moment. Thanks again, Caitlin.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, my dear, you know everything You can lean on my love.
slow. Two rivers wide, reflect and flow. But I can't deny loving you is easy. Oh, I won't deny, baby, you really see me. You can lean on my love. I wanna hold you. You can lean on my love. I won't let you down. You can lean on my love. I wanna heal you from whatever feeling in your heart is weighing down your mind. Hey, babe, what you wanna say? I'm on your side, and I wanna keep it that way. Hey, babe, what you wanna do? I'm on your side, I wanna see this through. I'm on your side, please believe it's true. I'm on your side, and I'm gonna keep on loving you.